you. We're now going to go into a beautiful conversation with someone who's found a great place in my heart. We're going to speak about the upside of collaboration in entrepreneurship. We've taken time on the phone ourselves to collaborate on some formal and informal things. So please help me warmly welcome to stage the CEO at Motlanalo, Chartered Accountants and Auditor Incorporated, Koko Khumalo. Let me stand up for you. For this one in particular, I will not be taking any questions online for reasons known to me. So we're going to start with a very clear question. I know a lot about your business. I've learned a lot about your business. I'm not going to give away the numbers because you're going to give how many people you employ and how long you've been in operation. And I know that you have yourself used collaboration to your advantage. How has collaboration helped you towards the achievement? But start with the precursor and just explain to them who you are and the stats. I think it's incredible.
Dumela. Thank you, Thami. And thanks to the organizers for inviting us and allow me in particular to share with you a story of Motlanalo. So I spent 20 years in the Big Four audit profession. I worked for 2 Big Four firms. I was fortunate to be a partner and held various leadership positions and in the executive committees of both. So sometime in my life I was told, if you've experienced and spent time for 20 years in an environment, you can claim to be a subject matter expert. So after the 20 years, Motlanalo was born. April 2017, we started operating in the Polokwane office. Courtesy of PricewaterhouseCoopers, we acquired the operations that were still left in Polokwane. Today, we operate in 4 provinces. We are now in Mpumalanga. We are here in Gauteng, our largest office, and we are in the Western Cape. We employ just over 100 South Africans, and we have support from specialists, nearly 30. So yes, collaboration helped us, and we've experienced the upside. But for me, key to collaboration is access to markets. So the 20 years that I spent in the Big Four allowed me really to hone my skills in how audit firms are managed, operated, run. And I knew when we started Motlanalo that without access to markets, we may just as well close doors. So PwC gave us the start, offices with furniture. The difficulty was for us to build our book of business. 2018, December, Ernst & Young, Ajahn Sita, CEO of Ernst & Young Africa, announced to the market the strategic partnership with Motlanalo. A partnership that will allow us access to markets firms of our size will not be able to penetrate. And today, the upside of that collaboration is the following. We audit financial services sector, banks, insurance, retail, telco, logistic, a large internal audit and a state-owned entity, and I can continue. Also important that through Auditor General South Africa, we've been given the best access to markets in the public sector. Quite often, we look at government in the negative. But I really want to express my sincerest appreciation to the Auditor General South Africa for the growth that they brought into our business. Perhaps the important part is both EY and Auditor General South Africa have defined and shaped the upside of collaboration. We auditors at the end of the day, We deliver services to clients. We sign reports on behalf of clients. And they want to trust the report that they look at. So this collaboration was not a one day like this. It took days and months of persuasion, negotiation, understanding, and agreeing on the terms and the conditions. So we don't do as we wish. So there are matters of independence in the audit profession. There are matters of dependency that Auditor General South Africa will encourage and continue to encourage us to build our own book of business. But what I like as well about both of them is, let's take Auditor General South Africa as an example. Every engagement we deliver is assessed through a scorecard. What does that do to our business? It forces us to make sure that our staff deliver the required quality, deliver on time, and also for us to have the right infrastructure for them, that they have a laptop, they have access to data, they have access to Wi-Fi, they understand the methodology, because if not, it's time up. Same applies to the audits that we do under EY. Let me get into our clients. So we look at the book of business of Motlanalo in three ways: the EY partnership, the Auditor General work that we do, and obviously our clients. And some of them are in the room. May I say to them, thank you very much. Thank you for gambling on a firm that is 8 years old today. And it's because of most of you in this room that we've managed to create these jobs, reduced unemployment in this country. But by so doing, our mission is simple, is to transform the audit profession landscape. We are very clear on that one. Through cultural excellence in business. And our purpose is to create a nurturing environment for young South Africans and to allow them to play a role in this country and beyond. The beauty of audit is simple, especially South African CAs. Are we not number one in the world today?
Yep.
We are. So as we produce our CAs, we allow them to play their role by staying with us if they wish to, by joining business if they want to, or they can leave the country, because it's also important for them to experience, because experience is the best teacher. We've managed to really find subject matter experts within our staff through auditing for the first days of running the business, member-based organizations. I wouldn't want to mention in case I miss some, but allow me just to say our very first client was Business Unity South Africa. That on its own gave us confidence as a company. That a business that shapes the policy making in this country with government looked at us and say,
these ones.
We've got you. So the fourth thing that I like to share is that you wouldn't manage to have this collaboration working if internally you don't discuss it, you don't engage about it, you don't look at our values, we don't look at our purpose, we don't look at our brand personality. And our values are simple and clear. It's respect, understanding, trust, and accountability, meaning abbreviated as RUTA, meaning interesting enough to teach in Sepedi. And we use these values when we engage with the people we collaborate with. We use our purpose when we engage with the people we collaborate with, because it's important that, and I listened to the earlier conversations, that values do matter in collaboration.
They do.
We auditors at the end of the day, we need to comply with what the regulators are saying. We need to apply our code of conduct. So integrity, objectivity, and just the trust that clients have on the profession do matter.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause, yes, please, clap for her. I think It's such an incredible story that she's giving us about their firm and the success of collaboration. And I wanted to, time is running so quick, but I'm going to fit in this last question with you is, how does an entrepreneur go and seek a collaborator? What's the first step they need to take? A lot of people do land up collaborating, but they don't know how to find the relevant collaborator. Because you can't collaborate with somebody who lacks funding if you also lack funding. You got to be smart about how you choose and seek this collaboration. What are the practical steps for the entrepreneurs?
Thanks, Thami. It may sound like I'm repeating myself. But to collaborate in our case, and what I looked at, without ensuring that there's going to be growth and sustainability of your business, that was a big risk. Hence, access to markets for us was important. So if you look at EY, what they said was, we want to play a role in transforming this profession. It's concentrated. We need more home-brewed South African audit firms. And may I just use this opportunity, Thami, and say, in my earlier days and until I started Motlanalo, I was part of organized business structures. And those structures taught me the importance of transformation, but it started with me or us. So I really would like to thank Agent Sita for saying, we will help you grow your company. By so doing, we'll be transforming the audit profession by giving you access to markets that on your own you'll not be able to penetrate. And he has done that. So access to markets, access to markets. If I have to be in the room when the recommendations of B20, G20 are being shared, I will ask the businesses in the room, I'll ask governments in the room to say, it wouldn't help much that you give me access to finance.
Right.
So let me give an example with Khumalo. Not me, Khumalo. Khumalo is given 1,000 rand to sell vegetables. And she's expected to pay the 1,000 rand per month. But day one, no one buys. Day two, no one buys. Day three, where will she get the money to pay off the 1,000 rand with no access to markets? So the best you do, you say, Khumalo, I want you to deliver 1,000 rand worth of vegetables to my business every month, and by so doing, you are giving Khumalo access to markets. So that is important for small businesses, because by so doing, they grow. So if I just quickly go back to us as to what the Auditor General South Africa did for us. So we've been in their database since inception. This year, they started the new cycle of their database. We were so happy to be told you are now a medium-sized firm. And they contributed to that access to markets. This year, our clients, some of them may be in the room, who we managed to be their auditors by the partnership we have with EY, have said to us, Motlanalo, you are now a bigger purpose-led, values-based organization. We like you to give you an opportunity to sign some of our components.
Oh, wow. And
those components, one of them is regulated. Today, I'm happy to share with South Africa that we've been accredited by Financial Sector Conduct Authority to audit financial services sector. That's access to markets. It gives you the energy, it gives you the confidence. And our vision for 2030 is clear. We want to be a credible and alternative challenger firm to the Big Four in the next year. And we're clear on how to do that. So that was mostly access to markets. It's based on the purpose. It's based on the values. And the purpose must be very clear. To us was growth. To us was transformation. And to us was to reduce unemployment, to create jobs for young South Africans. And I always say when I present, because audit committees do ask a question, why you? And my response will be, because when history books are written, it will say that you, as the audit committee, the executives in the room, have taken a decision to help firms of our size and background to create jobs, to reduce unemployment, but also to have access to complex JSE-listed companies' transactions. And by so doing, you shape this country by ensuring that majority Black South Africans play a role in this economy. I mean, auditors influence everything we do in business. They shape business, they shape how governments are run through the recommendations that we leave on the table.
I think she's really shed some gems. And I think in the beginning of the morning, one of the speakers, I think it was Babalwa actually, explained to you that this is not just a conversation, it's not just an ordinary conference. We'll be taking some tidbits to then suggest to B20 and inevitably G20. And I hope that they will consult you on, you already know what the vision should be for this sector for 2030 and the steps to achieve it. She's a great well to learn from. So please do make contact with her. Please, everybody, a round of applause. Koko Khumalo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Distinguished guests, so one of the compliments I received in the ladies' room at lunch went as follows. You and Thami are so well dressed, Nozi. It's almost as if you are the Koko Khumalos of the future. And I just thought, what an absolute compliment. That's what I'm going to take away from today. You saw the blueprint on the stage, but more than anything else, her insights and sharing her wisdom. Now, this panel that we're going to go into now, I really think is one of the most important conversations because it is a conversation we've been having for decades. We've been having the conversation through the lens of access to finance when we think about financial velocity, but we're going to reframe it slightly in today's conversation. We want to focus on velocity, the speed at which money moves within a business, an ecosystem, a community. We want to ask, can we reframe the questions in such a way that that money begins to translate into trading across borders, multiplied into value, collaborations within an ecosystem. And so the speakers you're going to hear about now or hear from, we're not going to sit and lament the challenges to capital for entrepreneurs. We're putting on a very solutions-orientated hat and really trying to think about what are the financing instruments that we need to make more readily accessible, that we need to bring to the surface and put in the hands of entrepreneurs. What's working? How do we scale? How do we multiply? Now, I am about to call up my panelists. We have a little bit of a different format for this one. I'm also getting an ad break message as I'm doing that. Fantastic. We've got a little bit of a different format for this one in the sense that we have some framing remarks that are going to just set the stage for us so that we're all on the same page. So I'm going to invite my panelists first, and then I'm going to invite our speaker, who's going to give us framing remarks, to join us while we sit and listen. It's my pleasure now to welcome to the stage Madame Zodwa Manase. Let's give her a big round of applause as she comes up. Chairperson of UIF and, of course, co-founder of ORCA. We've heard so much about ORCA and the amazing work that they're doing today. Madame Manase, thank you so much. If you could join me right here. Would be fantastic. I'd like to welcome Mr. Moni Mungwe, the head of SME business in Gauteng, North and Limpopo from ABSA Group. Let's give Mr. Mungwe a big round of applause as he comes up. Thank you very much, sir. I'm going to invite Madame Kone Kukushe. She's the head of social investing at the First Rand Group. Kone, if you could join us, please. Thank you very, very much. And as we take our seats, I am going... Oh, there's an extra clap for Kone. Hey, I suspect that must be a First Rand community there. Out in numbers, here to support as always. I'm going to invite to give us some framing remarks, to put some guardrails around our conversation, because when we're talking financial velocity, we could spend 2 hours, 3 hours in this conversation. But maybe to focus us, and to focus us around the key trends that are shaping the entrepreneurial and SME landscape from an access to finance perspective. Please help me welcome Madame Heather Orton. She is with EY Parthenon Africa and looks after strategy and innovation. Let's give Heather a big round of applause. As Heather makes her way to the podium, let me take the opportunity to quickly remind you that we'd love to hear from you. I've got my phone with me, so I'll be taking some questions for the panelists, from the panelists with us. Heather, it's over to you. Let's just make sure that Heather's microphone is loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Shall I try that again? Good afternoon, everyone. So I feel very privileged to share the stage with not only these esteemed guests, but the guests that we've had over the last day and a half. And I believe that I would like to thank Sinayo Global and Kahiso for just this incredible event. It really reminded me of another point when I felt incredibly privileged, and that was when I worked with an organization called the Sustainable Markets Initiative. And we had the privilege, it was sponsored by, I'm going to say the former Prince of Wales, so King Charles III, and we had the privilege of convening a very similar group to this. And we took it to the G7. So we were one of the first organizations to take 10 global CEOs to sit down with the G7. And this type of event really inspires me because it's very similar to what we were trying to do. And so I believe that we are at a crossroads between economic growth and sustainability. And the role of finance has never been more critical in creating the platform for small businesses and entrepreneurs to make that successful. I'm going to talk about the 6 trends that I'm seeing when it comes to sustainable finance. And as one of my mentors once said to me, be good, be brief, and be gone. So I will spend as little time as I can covering them. So the first one I've heard us talk about a lot, which is access to capital. And this is probably the overarching one. It's still a very significant hurdle for SMEs, and this is the reason for this is that it's challenging to secure finance because there's very complex criteria, I believe based on a mismatched risk portfolio, and there's often lack of collateral. Big businesses are still looking to invest in high-value, high-return projects. I spoke to a friend of mine from Bank of America. They've only just made their first investment in Africa, and it was valued at $50 billion. And it's too big. And so for us to be able to benefit from that, we really do need to look at aggregation to make these types of investments viable. The next trend is around alternative funding models. And what we're seeing is the entrance of venture capital, crowdfunding, and impact investing. These avenues can help optimize small businesses' cash flow management and can give them the opportunities to navigate what is typically a very complex investment portfolio, ultimately accelerating their growth and sustainability. I find it really interesting that 46% of the African market is considered underbanked. 80% of that has an active role in the informal sector, which means 1 out of every 2 people are lending from friends and family to be able to run their businesses. We are seeing savings and credit cooperatives are mobilizing more and more investment capital to support individuals to operate independently, and only when they reach scale are they looking for bigger investment. The third theme is really around the evolving role of our banks. We recently undertook a piece of research for one of our largest African banks, and we interviewed SMEs and entrepreneurs, and what was really interesting is what they want from their bank. So they want their banks to help them grow beyond borders, give them that international scale. They want their banks to offer services and strategic insights beyond traditional banking. They want that ecosystem of support, whether it's marketing, accounting, sustainability guidance. They want the flexible and convenient way to access the working capital. They want pre-approved credit, pre-approved debt, and minimal paperwork. They want integrated, intuitive platforms that are easy to use and allow them to use it wherever they are at whatever time. They want open lines of communication that is personalized to them and omni-channel. So whichever channel they use, they want to be able to engage with their bank. And then the last one is they want to optimize the charges, particularly for cross-border. It's very expensive to move money, and that can be very prohibitive for our small businesses. Many of the businesses that we interviewed had more than one bank account, and many of them were using multiple platforms to make international payments. Number 4 is increasing the emphasis on collaboration. We've talked a lot about collaboration today, and what is really great is we're seeing more and more collaboration between banks, financial services, and non-financial services. Education sector, technology sector, we're seeing a lot of that increasing. And where this helps is really when it comes to the regulatory environment. Small businesses don't necessarily have the resources to be able to navigate what is a very complex regulatory environment. We are looking to simplify it, but even that trade across Africa is still pretty complicated. And what they can do is leverage the investment of large organizations who are investing in innovative technologies and sustainable practices. Number 5, I've only got 2 more to go. So the next one is blended finance, and I think we are going to touch on blended finance in this panel. And this is really about seeing those grants and those incentives, those corporate responsibility interventions, playing a role in how we work together, tapping into multiple diversified types of funding. And then last, the increasing demand on sustainable practices. So as sustainability continues to become a priority, small to medium enterprises that align their business models, and yesterday there was a fabulous award that kind of talked about the ability to align your business model and the value that's there. Over 140 banks are committed to aligning investment and lending to sustainable practices. So those organizations that can really demonstrate that they're operating in that way have the ability to tap into that investment. So it's clear that the path forward requires collaboration, innovation, and their commitment to integrating sustainable practices into our financial systems. For SMEs and entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs who build them, the challenges are still significant, but within that is also growth and opportunity for transformation. Together, I believe we can create the ecosystems that support economic participation and prioritizes environmental sustainability and social responsibility. I'm really looking forward to the panel exploring these topics more. Thank you.
Heather, thank you very much. Can we give Heather a big round of applause? I've said to Heather not to sit too far away. She's going to take a seat in the front row in case we might call on her if some of the questions from the audience are particularly for her. But you've set the foundation and the frame beautifully, Heather. And Mr. Mungwe, I want to start off with you. When I listen to Heather saying all of the things that entrepreneurs want from banks. She says they want an ecosystem of support. They want more flexible and convenient products. They want to be pre-approved for credit. And I think the list is quite long. And I think for a long time, we've been interrogating the lending models of banks to really understand the extent to which they are responsive to the needs of entrepreneurs. The question to you is, in what ways are you seeing yourselves as ABSA and the industry evolving to become more responsive to entrepreneurs? And what are some of the exciting things that are products or services that entrepreneurs can begin to look to because they are a direct reaction to these demands?
No, thank you so much for the question. I have made some notes, so I will refer to my notes as well. I think it's a very, very valid question that you're asking, because many times in gatherings like this, the first thing that we get is that, but how are you supporting SMEs?
Yes, and I want to make sure the people right at the back can hear us. Can you hear us right at the back? Okay, fantastic.
Yes. So how are you supporting SMEs? Where is the money and all those things? And this comes from the fact that in the past, the way we used to assess credit was based on the individual and their experience in the industry they are in.
Yes.
It was also based on, of course, an industry that would have known about. We know farming, there is money, and we can even, if you tell me how many hectares, I can already tell you how much you're going to make. But we are in a different landscape now.
Yeah.
Some of the products are just landing now, have not been into the market. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to come up with those, desktop analysis to say this is how this project will perform. The other issue, which is a very big one, was that there was a requirement for an entrepreneur to come up with their own financial contribution. So if you need 10 million, we say we need 2 million from you, and most startups would not have that. And then there was an element of collateral that if you are able to then come up with the 2 million own contribution, we then want 8 million worth of collateral, which in the current space, that's impossible. Now, we had to come up with what we call alternative lending solutions.
Yeah.
So that we can adapt to the changes and the fast-paced innovation markets that we see. And we have partnered, and I'm happy that since the morning there's been a lot of discussion around, or emphasis around, collaboration, because as a bank, our customers invest money, which we then lend.
Yeah.
They expect that there is a return, and if we lend recklessly, then it becomes a problem to the people who have deposited. But with our expertise in terms of understanding credit, we are able to partner with some stakeholders, be it government, to say we are seeing a business that is viable. The individual have the expertise to can run this business, but we don't have collateral.
Yeah.
And then come up with guarantees that will then support such a venture. So we have such things, but also for light capital enterprises, we partner with fintechs in terms of saying where they use our devices, we can already track our devices in terms of payments. We can already track how much they are making on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, and then be able to say, okay, based on the funds that are flowing in your merchant device, we are able to give you so much per day as credit, because we know by end of the day, as the people are swiping, the funds will be back into their account. So those are some of the things that we are using to be able to support entrepreneurs.
So, Moni, what I love about how you've responded in that question is you started off with in the past, and then made a very distinct navigation to how things are now. So what I'm hearing you say is that gone are the days where banks used to only look at the individual profile. Gone are the days when banks used to give you desktop analysis that's based on what they expect out of an industry. And what I'm also hearing you say is that there's an openness to emergent practices, emergent industries. And so the pace and velocity at which banks need to respond is also increasing. But I think a lot of us will be excited to hear not only about the collaboration, but that it's intentional collaboration that covers the collateral requirements, that covers some of the skin in the game that entrepreneurs were expected to bring to the party in their own way. I'll come back to the relationship with fintechs, because I think we need to demystify a little bit what's happening in that space. But Kone, let me come to you, because Heather already indicated in a way that she'd love to hear your voice on the idea of blended finance. We're hearing a lot of impact investing. We're hearing a lot of funders being interested in the ESG agenda and wanting to back enterprises, and maybe specifically even social enterprises that are going in that space. In your view, how effective are we in terms of leveraging grants and CSI money together with other funding sources to really give entrepreneurs different options and configurations of financial instruments? And can we do better?
Thank you very much, Nozipho, and good afternoon, everybody. I think we really started the conversation well to trace the practices of the past and how those have evolved to what we currently see today. And I think this is no different to the CSI sector, where, previously CSI was really rooted in altruistic intent and really grant funding just given for the sake of giving, with no clear motive or clear impact that was expected of it. And as practices have moved, and as there's been, I think, more demand on capital.
Yeah.
I think the CSI industry has also evolved to understand that actually what we are providing is some form of capital. And in fact, if you just consider the word CSI to be corporate social investment. It's not corporate social expenditure, it's corporate social investment. And that investment nature says that you are actually providing capital into the market in a form that has less financial return expectation, but it doesn't mean that there is no return expectation. And so as this evolution has happened, I think there's been more and more space that has been opened up for the blending of grant funding together with other forms of capital to mitigate risk, to provide, I think, more accessible financing. And as we as CSI practitioners also become more attuned to the fact that the funds that we have are also scarce. And so, you know, we need to optimize how we deploy those funds, and therefore we need to see how best to do that, how to become more efficient in doing that. If you give a little bit, that can go a long way. You can put together your funds into a pot that actually makes it and multiplies it into a bigger impact. The blended finance models, I think, have been quite interesting in that you will also appreciate that a lot of CSI funds either have endowments that have large amounts of capital that is available, and we are also now starting to look at ourselves as investors. And how do we manage the endowments that we have in a manner that enables more patient capital to be available in the market, more cheaper capital to be available in the market, and even more quicker capital. As we are talking about velocity, I think CSI also provides funding that can be deployed much quicker, that can be used as a bridge while businesses are on a maturity path, growing until they become bankable or they can secure other more expensive forms of capital.
So I'm queuing up my question to Madame Manasseh, but I want to use you to help me, Kone, because I think as you bring our attention to the I in CSI, one almost realizes that perhaps there's a myth to be demystified here, the idea that CSI funding is softer, it's less stringent, there will be less criteria compared to maybe accessing it from Mr. Monet and his lending model sitting there at ABSA. And I would imagine that that's probably not true, because you need to be positioning yourself as an attractive investment, even as a social enterprise. Just a quick comment on that, because I think we're going to go to that topic with Madame Manasseh.
So, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of, I would say, practices that result in abuse of CSI funds. Because people think that it's free money, because people think that it's, you know, money that they can just, that doesn't have any conditions. And as I said, capital is scarce. And for us to be able to manage and deploy our scarce capital appropriately, we need to manage it more intentionally. And so, of course, we've got, you know, quite specific and strict criteria that we would follow in terms of the kinds of entities that we invest in. Trust, I think, is a very important factor within the CSI space, because what we are not asking for in a financial return, we are asking for in a social return. So we absolutely want to be partnering with entities that have limited execution risk, that actually are able to achieve the things and the purpose for which the funds are being given. So purposeful funding is what we want. And you know, we are willing to become a little bit more patient for that, and you know, have a little bit less cost towards that. But certainly it must be to a trustworthy entity that has execution capacity and capability, and is able to deliver what we are actually expecting in other alternative returns.
So that's a beautiful positioning for us. So one of the beauties about the work that I do is that when you brief your panelists, you learn so much. So in our briefing call, Madam, you took me back to my project finance classes. So Madam says to me, Nozipho, explain to me what is your understanding of UIF first, before you can brief me any further. And so I go back and I'm like, no, Madam, this is my understanding of UIF. And then she says, that's correct, but the one thing that you've missed is that we are one of the few state-owned entities that is financially viable. And that's what I want to talk about. So, to that point of being financially viable and linking it back to Kone's, the criteria, the importance of continuous, robust reporting, financial transparency as an entrepreneur, even as you're building your muscle to build that muscle along, how significant is that in attracting capital and being able to really realize financial velocity?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to the attendants. Good afternoon. I just recently been appointed as the UIF chair. Yes. And I think it's important to tell everyone what we do, because people think it's all about taking contributions and paying for those that have lost their jobs. Yes, that's what we do. But what people don't also know is that we are an entity that invests in listed and unlisted companies and also in other financial instruments. Yeah. And I'm sure most of you do not know that we have, those assets make about 160 billion that we carry. And our biggest concern is about unemployment. Yes. So we have projects that make sure that we create employment by investing in some of the companies that come up with good proposals. But we also have a project called Labor Activating Project, because we have to make sure that there is increase in employment. So every year we have a big budget. This year we have a budget of about 10 billion, where we're still going to invite companies that train people for employment, because we have to create employment. We also have got funds for companies, and I'm sure many businesses here do not know, we've got funds for companies that are in short-term financial problem, where we actually pay for some of the salaries, 75% of your salaries for a year. We also have a program that assists companies that are in financial distress for a short period, because we want to make sure that we prevent unemployment, because it also comes to us because we have to pay. Now, coming to why is this important? Your question about transparency, about reporting, about consistency. I just recently been to that other side of being an investor. Yes. And knowing the importance of all of that, making sure that I know exactly what's happening in the company. We've got a majority of our assets, our investments are listed, but there are unlisted companies as well. So for me, I mean, the first thing I want to know, if there are going to be problems, let me know very early. Early warning signs, consistent reporting, making sure that I know who you are. You mentioned the tool that you are using to understand the business, what is coming in. So you monitor on a daily basis. So for me as an investor, making sure that you have clean audit reports every year, you have management reports, and I understand that when there are problems, and this is where we come in, when there are problems, I'm able to assist you. But if you had not been consistent, I won't be able to assist you. So we do a lot of investment to what the bankers and the normal bankers would not. We don't look at the person, we look at employment creation. We also look at the viability of the asset. We've had challenges, but mostly, I mean, if you talk about that kind of assets we have and the investments that we've done, we really have done a lot of a good job. But we are looking for job creation, and we are looking for training, especially for the jobs of the future.
Yes.
Because we cannot put money in something that is not going to be there in the next 10 years,
Yeah.
you know, in jobs that are not going to be there in the next 10 years. I think I'll pause there.
Thank you so much, and I think those are excellent insights as you talk to us about the importance of line of sight of what's happening in the forecast of the business, the early warning mechanisms. And imagine if we got that capability right, would we reduce the number of failed businesses, because we'd be able to see the challenges on the horizon as you talk about thinking about businesses that are thinking about servicing future industries, playing in future spaces. All of this is possible when you have that line of sight into that business. Now, I don't know where the time's gone, but I want to squeeze in just a few more, one question each if I can. I want to take this one from the audience for you, Monet, which says, it's from Paul, and Paul has been so active. Paul, if I could give you a prize for today, you certainly have been one of the most engaging participants today. And Paul says, how can a small startup business at the seed capital phase, right, get funding assistance from a bank without being, Paul's bringing, is bringing the fight, without being perpetually rejected? And so to paraphrase the question, the issue here is seed capital. And that capital that says, I'm willing to take a risk on you, even though I haven't seen what you can do. Are banks rethinking that type of funding?
Yes, definitely. And I think the answer to that question lies with the answer or the discussion from the previous speaker when she mentioned access to markets. Because the minute you are able to prove to us that there is market for your product, then we are able to finance. I indicated that financial position of an entrepreneur is no longer an issue. Collateral is no longer an issue. So the main issue is, do you have access to markets? Can you prove that? Do you have off-take agreement? And once you have that, then we are able to support.
Thank you so much. So I'm building on, and I'm trying to get to the next one for you, Kone. There's a question from Rametse, and I'm trying to pull it up, and it's disappeared. But I'm going to then maybe bring this one from Anonymous. Kone. It says, oh, it's jumped around. Okay. The essence was, can you talk to us about how do you approach collaborations that allow for blended finance? It seems as if blended finance instruments are really hard to come about. So for the average SMME, how do they access blended finance instruments? And do they go to you, or do they go to a bank first? Which door do they knock on, essentially?
Yeah. So I think either way, either entry point is okay. Because what has happened, again, in the evolution of how CSI funds and CSI departments have operated over the last couple of years is you have seen more internal collaborations. In our case, for example, with us being attached to the First Rand Group, you have seen more collaboration between our own social investing department with other banking divisions, where you know, as they engage with potential clients and they are looking at particular structuring of funding, depending on what is the source of, what is the use of the funds that they are looking for, you know, understanding what the CSI strategy is and what we are trying to drive, identifying whether there's areas of overlap within that, and then seeing if there is some collaboration that can happen. And I think a lot of it really is around awareness and discussion. I think opening up platforms for open discussions between donors and other forms of capital on their own, as well as, getting these to be more advertised and well known, so that people are more aware of the access that they can get. What we as CSI departments have started to do is to position ourselves not only as grant makers, and I think the more we have conversations around understanding who we are funding. We are not just funding NPOs. There is absolutely a space for us to provide access to capital for SMEs, and it's platforms like this where we can be able to reach out and get that word out to say, if you understand what you are trying to do and the type of capital that can enable you to do that, let's have a conversation and let's see what is it that can get you not rejected all the time. We can alleviate that in a little bit.
So that goes beautifully back to Heather's earlier point about the need for funding within an ecosystem, and to be able to see those additional needs that could then position an entrepreneur for a blended finance instrument. It would have to be an entrepreneur that we've got almost full line of sight within the ecosystem about their needs. So it all comes back together beautifully. As I close, I want to do two things with you, Madam Manas. I want to ask you a final question, and then I want to invite you to tell us a little bit about the Orca conference and gala dinner. I know when I started this conversation, I said we're not going to sit and lament the challenges to access to capital. Then Heather came on stage and Heather said, the number one problem is access to capital. So I feel like Heather has put me in a corner and I have to now go to that corner. So Madam, one of the things that Heather says though, is that one of the reasons why there's a challenge with access to capital is there's a mismatch in the risk portfolio. There's a mismatch in the perception of risk that we have around entrepreneurs. You have sat on both sides of the table as an investor and an investee, and I'm sure in multiple roles as well. How do we rebalance the perception of risk that is sometimes out of sync with the reality of risk amongst entrepreneurs?
Well, if I were to talk to someone, to remember that whenever you are in front of a funder, you're dealing with a human being. There's a psychology in that. You're selling yourself. So you talked about perception, the risk, which many times is about perception. So it's important to have a selling point that makes you unique so that you're attractive to the funders, because there are, of course, numbers. That's what we look at as funders. But there is psychology in something that excites me about your company. Why must I choose you against others? What is your competitive edge? I mean, it's not different from selling yourself for an interview
at a job,
or a man proposing to a woman. It's the same thing. It's about making sure that that perception is actually addressed. You talk about the risk, you address your risk. And I must just say to entrepreneurs that are sitting here, every time you're reporting, it's an opportunity to sell yourself. We concentrate on only facts and numbers, but I must be excited when I see ABSA, and I'm sure you actually, big companies, they have got integrated reports, but a small business doesn't have that. So have a paragraph about the beautiful things that you've done. Normally we don't sell ourselves as businesses. I think that, besides the fact that you have to have good numbers and all the other things that people look, we must see your uniqueness. Sell yourself. Sell, why must I choose you?
I absolutely love that. Reporting is not just about compliance. It's about highlighting your uniqueness, what makes you the right choice, what makes you even more competitive. And so that's a complete mindset shift, because I think compliance has always been seen as a grudge practice. And here I'm hearing you say that we should actually be looking forward to reporting, because it's an opportunity to put our story in the hands of those who could be potential investors, partners, collaborators. So as we leave the stage, what would you like to share with us about the 6th of August?
Thank you very much. AWCA, that is African Women Chartered Accountant, is a serious passion of mine. I'm one of the co-founders, and we are 23 years now. We have a conference that we run. We appoint a woman of substance every year. We actually also raise funding for bursaries. We've actually, over the years, funded 400 students. And Gone is one of the advisors. I chair the advisory committee. And where is our big former president? The founder of Sinayo. She also has been part of this. I'm inviting and I'm begging everyone who's here to support us, to come to the conference, and also to fund us. There are tables that are going to be offered. There are, offers for sponsorship. We really would like you to help us, because we are about increasing the number of women chartered accountants. And all the young kids here, because I'm the oldest, Babalwa, and I see Les, if you're still here, and I know there's no Misa here, many CAs, my little babies. Yeah. Please support them, and they're going to go around and asking for money to assist to increase the number of chartered accountants. On the 6th in fact, I must say, every year, the first Thursday of August is our function.
Oh, that's beautiful. So we put it in the calendar to repeat every year, the first Thursday of August, 6th of August. And I remember that there is an email address if you want to quickly send off your email, talent@oka.co.za, and they will support you in the process of making sure that you secure your tickets, you book your tables. What I am going to ask you to do right now is to give a very, very big round of applause to my panelists. Thank you so very much. You've been phenomenal. Thank you so much. Thank you,